trouble, 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 trouble.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Pro Wrestling Unleashed. I am, of course, Bill Mack. I'm glad to join you again with another Impact Wrestling wrap up. This is for April the 12th, 2018 edition of Impact, with just a little over under 2 weeks to go before Redemption. Glad you folks could join me for another video. Like I said, I've been sporadic with my videos as of late, but I'm just really glad that I was able to bring up another video here for you. Like I said, I'm trying this format where I'm doing it more of podcast style rather than showing my face or whatever. I think it comes out better. But thanks once again for any of you that watched this video. It means a lot to me as I try to get these videos out and cover Impact Wrestling. I know there's quite a few different websites that do it and a couple of YouTube channels that do it, but I just do my part because I love Impact Wrestling and I try to get it out there for you that may not watch it or get a chance to watch it and just want the updates. So let's get right on into the episode. We begin Impact with a brief recap of what happened last week. Remember, last weekend was WrestleCon weekend. We had the big Impact Wrestling versus Lucha Underground event that took place. It took place on Twitch. It was a really exciting event. It was great to see these two promotions working together, which to me is a good model to showcase new talent, new matchups between the companies, and instead of, to me, trying to divide and be competitive, it's good just to put on a good product and matches that people are wanting to see, because when it all comes down to it, to me, the fans are the winners when you have this style. But we see, after that happens, we see Eli Drake come out, and of course, remember last week, Eli Drake won the Impact Championship title match briefcase from Moose as he was attacked by OVE. And of course, Eli hit Moose with the bat. Right, the referee wasn't looking and hit the gravy train and captured both briefcases. But for now, he comes out and he is going to state who his tag team partner will be for this title matchup. So before he even begins to really talk, LAX comes out and they come to the ring, which chases Eli out to the top of the ramp. And so Konnan's telling him, we're just trying to find out who you are, who your tag team partner is, who you're going to choose. And so Eli Drake reveals that it's going to be none other than Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner. And remember, we hadn't seen Scott Steiner since last year's Slammiversary when he was Josh Matthews' tag team partner. But they go back and forth and cut promos on, because Eli told Konnan that it was somebody he knew and he had been around. And remember, Papa Pump and Konnan were both in the NWO, and they were very familiar with it. And remember, that Big Papa Pump's part of one of the greatest tag teams in wrestling with the Steiner brothers. And so he reveals that he's going to beat down LAX and they're going to take those tag team titles at Redemption. So we're now set with our tag team matchup announced for Redemption will be Eli Drake along with his partner Scott Steiner taking on LAX. So this looks to be a good matchup. I'm looking forward to seeing this. I know Scott Steiner isn't what he used to be, but as always, he's always entertaining on the mic. We'll see how he does inside the ring as well. So we come back and there's a GWN flashback, and it's a matchup between Rosemary taking on Jade. This is a steel cage match, and we see that Rosemary ends up winning that, hitting a red wedding off the top rope to claim the Knockouts Championship from Jade at that time. Our next matchup is, as I alluded to just a few minutes ago, we have Sami Callihan taking on Moose. Now, remember, Moose is seeking out revenge because Sami interfered in his matchup, cost him his case, his world title case match. And so this is a good match. I enjoyed this match. It was a good physical back and forth. There were some near falls to it, very physical between the two, between the punches and the moves and power bombs and all that they were going through. I think this was a good physical match between the two. However, it ends whenever Sammy Callahan gets the bat in his hands. Moose goes to charge him. We see Callahan hits him with the bat. He goes down. The rest of OVE, Jake and Dave Chris come out, and they're all and attacking Moose, who's on the ground. Eddie Edwards slides through. He comes to make the save, and while he fights him off a little, we always know numbers really matter. So whenever that happens, they all attack Eddie, and as they've got Eddie stretched out to be hit with the bat, we see his wife Alicia come in. Remember, they've all been tied with this storyline the last few weeks between OV vowing to attack anybody close to Eddie. Remember, they saw Sammy stalking Alicia, Eddie's wife, and then they attacked Bobby Lashley at one point. Now they basically attacked Moose, and so then whenever Alicia gets in the corner, she's cornered by OVE, and the lights go out, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? All of a sudden, when the lights come back on, lo and behold, it's Mr. Extreme himself, Tommy Dreamer. He's in the corner, and he ends up with a kendo stick. He hits Jake Christ, and he hits Dave Christ, and he hits Sammy Callahan. Sammy Callahan goes down. He ends up hitting the pile driver on Sammy. Sammy clears the ring, and Tommy Dreamer lets him know, hey, at Redemption, we're going to have a six-man tag match. We're going to have Eddie Edwards and Moose and myself taking on all OVE in a House of Hardcore match. So always look forward to those. Always good to have a hardcore match, style match at a pay-per-view. So looks like we have another match that is added officially to the Redemption pay-per-view card. So look forward to that. So good to see him, basically, Tommy Dreamer, back, and the fans were glad to see him. He got a good reception. Which just transitions us into a grudge match where Josh Matthews has challenged Petey Williams. This was a funny match, as for the first, 5 to 10 minutes, Josh was stretching, Josh was running around, Josh was doing everything he could do to stall his matchup with Petey, which you remember leading up to that point, the whole night he's bragging about what he's going to do to Petey. But now, as we see, once he gets in the ring, there's a point where Josh goes outside. He's baiting Petey to follow him. He's running around screaming like a little girl. And I think it was funny, but it was a really short matchup, of course, with it being Josh Matthews. Matt Sydal comes in and attacks Petey Williams, and then they end up choking Petey on the ropes at the end of the match. So we see this feud between Petey and Matt Sydal and Josh Matthews take another step. So this looks like it may be as we see that Petey Williams has the X Division briefcase, and he challenged Matt Sydal at Redemption for his X Division championship. So we wait to see that happen. The card is building up. I'm looking forward to this. Thought the match was kind of entertaining. Wasn't very much of a match, but it was entertaining with all the antics. Sometimes having a little bit of antics kind of lightens the mood of it. So then we come to a video package. They show, of course, of Brian Cage going back to his debut, the destruction he has left in his path as he has marched toward to where it shows him and Bobby Lashley going back and forth, and how Bobby has lost to him twice. So it looks to see him build up in Brian Cage. He's going to be, like I've stated weeks ago, he's going to be a competitive guy, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And the more he gets better with it, the better off he's going to be. And I think he's going to be a great champion one day in Impact Wrestling. Up next, we have Johnny Impact. Of course, he's interviewed him backstage. He is talking about how Jimmy Jacobs and Congo Kong are always interrupting him. He got attacked last week. He's just tired of it. And lo and behold, as he's speaking, we see Congo Kong and Jimmy Jacobs come into the picture. And Jimmy Jacobs is going back and forth with Johnny Impact, and Johnny Impact says, you know what, next week I'll invite you to the ring, and we'll have a match. So I'm getting tired of being interrupted. I'm getting tired of being jumped. Let's settle it in the ring next week. So I might have an invitation for you, and you're welcome to join it if you want to next week in the ring. So this sets up next week the Go Home Show 2 Redemption with Johnny Impact taking on Congo Kong, of course, with Jimmy Jacobs in his corner. Then we come to the matchup with we have a 6-man tag matchup which stems from last week. As it shows it last week where KM starts insulting the standby wrestler Richard Justice, which brings out Fallah Bahh, which brings out the Cult of Lee. They attack Fallah Bahh and Richard Justice. Lo and behold, Tyrus comes out and makes the save. So we have a 6-man tag match this week. We see that Fallah Bahh and Richard Justice, they start out strong against the Heels, against the Cult of Lee, and then whenever KM gets into the ring, we see that Richard Justice ends up getting attacked from when the referee doesn't see it, double teaming, which leads to then KM getting in control of the matchup, and then we see Tyrus come in. Tyrus kind of makes the save. He comes in and clears everybody out. Fallah Bahh ends up hitting a corner splash off the second rope to get the win over KM and the Cult of Lee. So looking forward to seeing this. If Tyrus is going to take on KM, this would be a feud I'd like to see. I wouldn't mind seeing KM and Tyrus. I want to see Tyrus in a feud, in a good standing feud that actually means something. So I hope this matchup leads to a feud between KM and Tyrus. But decent match. It wasn't too big, but when you got a big guys match like that, that's basically what you're going to get. Now this leads, of course, to our main event that's at Impact. This is the Demons Dance matchup. This is one that Rosemary mentioned last week, and as we have seen, these ladies have put on a really good feud the last few weeks, that which we picked up from months ago when these two. I enjoy it. We've seen Talia get the best of Rosemary in the ring. We've seen Rosemary get the best of Talia outside of the ring. This has been a good feud, and I really hope this is the end of it. I would hope that they would wait until Redemption to kind of close it out, but if it was, this was a good match. We see it starts on the inside, of course, with it being a Demons Dance match, which is basically more like a no disqualification, more of a hardcore style match. Usually they're all the same, they just have different names to them. But we see that it quickly goes to the outside. Rosemary starts out quick, but then Talia kind of takes over when she throws Rosemary into the corner. We see Talia throw in a bunch of steel chairs. She tries many attempts to throw Rosemary into them, and I tell you, this was physical. Once they got chairs, there was this one point to where Talia sets up a chair against Rosemary's sides and another chair, and she takes another chair and hits it, and it drives it right into Rosemary's ribs. She sets another chair up in the corner, and Rosemary misses with a spear in the corner and goes head first into the chair. This was a good matchup. Rosemary ends up bringing a ladder into it. It comes into play, and then finally a table. So you have all the basic essentials: table, ladders, and chairs. And basically, after Rosemary and Talia had worked their way to the top, they both went back and forth. Rosemary with a table set up in the corner. And we first see Rosemary trying to hit the Red Wedding. That's countered. Talia Valkyrie is getting frustrated because Rosemary has now learned how to counter the Road to Valhalla, which is what Talia's finishing maneuver is. And she tried many different times to hit the Road to Valhalla onto Rosemary on through the table. It doesn't work. Rosemary ends up hitting a pile driver. This looked good. A pile driver on Talia through the table to get the win. Now, this was a good spot here. I did see that these ladies got physical in this matchup, and for her to hit a pile driver off the top rope on through the table just looked good. It was a good matchup. So I thought that this was a good main event for these two ladies to come for the knockouts and challenge. They say it might be a closing to this feud. I hope not, and I hope to see Rosemary and Talia finish it at a pay-per-view. To me, it would be a better thing. So this looks good. So now we see that there's a recap of, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a recap, but a more thorough recap of what happened last week. As stated, the Impact Wrestling took on Lucha Underground. They talked to a lot of the wrestlers. They talked to the announcers. And they were just discussing the importance of reaching out and these shows pulling together. That they emphasized that the fans are the winners in these matchups. And instead of, like I said, competition, you're working together. You're trying to make the fans happy and satisfied. And to me, that's what really counts. I enjoy the fact that they are more important and worrying about the fans. And we're not here to try to be competition. We're just here trying to work together and to bring a good show to the fans. So, as many of you know, if you don't know, Alberto El Patron was released from Impact Wrestling. It stems from what happened at WrestleCon, and I'll give you this little bit of tidbit of what happened to sum up what happened last weekend. Alberto El Patron was at the teleconference at the conference that they had for the event at WrestleCon. He showed up, he talked, and then when it got time for the matchup, he called out and said he wasn't able to make it. He wasn't feeling well. So that in turn, basically, we see that in there was footage that he was doing an interview with somebody else, and it seemed like he was drunk. He was under the influence of alcohol. So by him counseling on the main events, because remember, the main event was basically I think it was Austin Aries and Phoenix taking on Pentagon Jr. and Alberto El Patron, but by El Patron not showing up, it turned into a triple threat match, which I think Pentagon won. So to me, he got up, he was upset. They showed him talking afterwards, and then they show that El Patron was indeed released from the company. So El Patron is no longer a part of Impact Wrestling. So now by doing that, it alters what your main event is. And Austin Aries went out the next night after the event to House of Hardcore, and he stated that since everything happened with El Patron, that he said, I'm a man of my word. I'm going to show up. And Pentagon and Phoenix both, since they won, and I was never pinned, but I lost. He said, I'm going to put my title on the line at Redemption, and the new main event will be a triple threat for the Impact Wrestling Championship between Pentagon Jr., Phoenix, and Austin Aries. And personally, me, I love it. I love the lucha style wrestling. I love that this kind of match will be the main event. So I just look forward in general. So that's what happened to sum it up. It was a good show. There was a lot of physicality in the matches. It was a good build continually. The Josh Matthews and Petey Williams match was kind of funny, but it sets up more of in line with Matt Sydal taking on Petey Williams for the X Division Championship. So at Redemption. So I thought this was a good match. Thanks once again. If you like these videos, definitely share them. Like I said, you also got other podcast and stuff such as BQ over in Impact Lounge, which I always listen to his. He's great. The Cleaners podcast. That's another good one that I like. I listen to Clock Cleaners, if I'm not mistaken. Podcast. They do Impact Wrestling. Andre Corbeil, he does Impact Wrestling. So many good options for you to listen to Impact Wrestling. But if you do like this video, like I said, drop a like on it, comment on it, subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell for notifications. You got a comment, make a comment. I'll definitely get back to you. So I will try to see if I can get a Redemption pay-per-view predictions to you. Hopefully by the first part of the week. So until next video, and thanks once again. This is Bill Mack for Pro Wrestling Unleashed saying, take it easy.